You don't have any Stephen King?
You've got the shinin'.
I mean shiny.
Shh! You wanna get sued?
It's just your fate. You're that geeky Stephen King kid. There's one of you in every school.
Okay, that's him, that's Cujo.
I was thinking along the lines of no TV and no beer make Homer something.
Oh, crazy.
Don't mind if I do!
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King, hosted by two lifelong constant readers. We do non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of King's published work and take a critical look at his film and television adaptations as well. We also discuss the latest King news and check in with each other on our ongoing King obsessions. It's the podcast where all things serve the King. You can find more of our work at towerjunkiespod.com. You can also like the Facebook page at facebook.com/towerjunkiespod and follow us on Twitter and every other level of social media at towerjunkiespod. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for a ridiculous amount of bonus content spread across all of obsessiveviewer.com's various podcasts. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and joining me as usual is Tiny. How is it going, Tiny?
Hey, man, it's going pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing quite okay. We are here tonight for the first time in a while, to do a Tower Junkies episode. We today are going to be continuing our series on Carrie with a review of David Carson and Brian Fuller's 2002 TV movie adaptation of Carrie, starring Angela Bettis. But before we do that, we've got some Stephen King news and check-ins to attend to and everything. But Tiny, we're back at Tower Junkies. How do you feel about that? Because we haven't had an episode in a little while.
It's been a hot minute. Glad to be back.
Yes. So am I. Our last episode was, August 10th.
Wow.
And it is October 12th now. So I'm so sorry, you guys, but we've been releasing stuff on the other shows as well and on Patreon, all of that stuff. But this is actually the first episode of Tower Junkies that we're recording with the equipment that I got in August. So very cool. Yeah. So anyway, before we get into our review and everything, do you want to get into some news and check-ins, Tiny? Absolutely. Nice. All right. Well, I've got a couple of news items here. Of course, Stephen King has on Netflix, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, an adaptation of the novella from If It Bleeds, I think. It is on Netflix now, but since we haven't covered If It Bleeds, I feel like we can't cover that, or I can't watch that yet, so I'm insane. But our friend Kim C over at the Year of Underrated Stephen King posted her review of it, so check that out over there. But the piece of news that I have is that there was, while he was promoting Mr. Harrigan's Phone, he had an interesting quote that surfaced where basically the headline is, Stephen King reveals what book he once adapted. He wants to have adapted. It sounded like I said once adapted. Anyway, so his quote is, quote, "I don't think anybody ever optioned Rose Matter, which I thought would have made a great movie. Joyland was optioned by the guy who made The Help. He did a terrific script, and I thought it would make a hell of a movie. The first one I wrote for Hard Case Crime, The Colorado Kid, turned into a TV series called Haven, and it was on the air for quite a while. And then he said, the checks never bounced, so that was good." Which I appreciate that. So you haven't read Rose Matter, have you?
I haven't.
Me neither. I've heard good things about it. I've heard very good things about it. So we'll have to cover that at some point. We will cover it at some point.
Definitely.
But you've read Joyland, right?
I have. It's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And we need to have Kim C on for all of the Hard Case Crime stuff. That's still that's still on the docket and everything, but yeah, we'll do that eventually. But yeah, I'm eager to reread Joyland because I just remember just loving that story so much.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yep. But speaking of movies and of books and everything, the other piece of news I have is Paul Greengrass is lined up to adapt and direct Stephen King's new bestseller Fairy Tale, which came out September 6th, I think. So this is from Deadline. Basically, Paul Greengrass and Greg Goodman will be producing the film, and Greengrass will be directing it. And King said, quote, "Needless to say, I'm a Paul Greengrass fan and think he's a wonderful choice for this film." And then Paul Greengrass is quoted as saying, "Fairy Tale is a work of genius, a classic adventure story, and also a disturbing contemporary allegory." So how do you feel about this news? How do you feel about Paul Greengrass as well? Because I'm kind of back and forth with him. How do you feel about Paul Greengrass in this news?
Well, the news that was fast.
Yeah.
Really fast. Not necessarily surprising because I feel like anything Stephen King gets gobbled up pretty quick because it's so reliable. But yeah, it's really fast, and especially the fact that it's like they already have the filmmaker and producer lined up. Paul Greengrass. That's what's crazy. I'm excited because I like Paul Greengrass. I think he's known for that kind of like steady cam shaky thing, like the Bourne movies. United
93. Yeah.
Right. I'm a big fan. That doesn't necessarily bother me. I think it's a fun style. I like his style. So I'm a fan of Paul Greengrass. Unfortunately, I haven't read Fairy Tale yet, so I don't know how his style and aesthetic will apply to that story, or if that's a good fit. I don't really know, but he's kind of, Paul Greengrass, in my experience, is a lot. I was going to say he's kind of an action director.
Yeah.
But I guess United 93, that's not an action movie.
No.
It's sort of thriller-ish, it's a thriller, I guess. But I'm just curious if that tone will jive with Fairy Tale. So
and we'll see. I'm curious if he's actually going to use that kind of shaky cam thing with it as well, because his most recent movie was Paul Greengrass was News of the World, I think, from 2000 or no, not 2000. Jesus, I'm sorry, 2020.
Okay.
And I completely screwed up the typing of his name on here. But anyway, News of the World with Tom Hanks, which it was fine. I mean, it was okay. Basically the plot, it was a Civil War veteran agrees to deliver a girl taken by the Kiowa people years ago to her aunt and uncle against her will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a Paul Greengrass movie.
Yeah. He also co-wrote the script. Interesting.
Huh. You saw it though, and it was okay? Yeah,
it was okay. It was fine, but it wasn't. It was a more traditionally shot film.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it could be interesting. I guess. I'd kind of forgotten that he had directed that one until I was making the notes and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I'm 12 chapters into Fairy Tale. I need to get back into it and do it, because I'm doing on Patreon kind of a read-along thing where every 100 pages or so I record like my thoughts on that section of the book, and I throw it on Patreon for the $2 and above patrons. But I'm really enjoying it. Like these first like 100 or 150 pages are just that classic Stephen King, like building up characters and introducing character dynamics and character relationships, and then diving into them before even hinting at like anything else that's going on with the story. So it's really good. It's really good. Are you going to be reading it soon?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm reading something else at the moment, but I was kind of holding off until we had a plan for when we were going to review it for the show. So.
Yeah. I think my thought is that after this episode, we have Carrie 2013 to do. And then I think after that, maybe we can do Fairy Tale. And then after that, we can go into Firestarter and the movies for Firestarter, because that was the initial plan. And then eventually that was going to lead to something. Oh, the new Firestarter movie. So I don't know. It's all up in the air. But maybe we can do Fairy Tale after we finish our Carrie series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's all the Stephen King news that I have. And I've got a few Stephen King check-ins. But Tiny, do you have any check-ins for Stephen King check-ins for the show?
Unfortunately, no, I don't.
Nice. I'm trying to think if there are any that I could like force upon you to bring up, but I can't. You do own Fairy Tale, right?
I do. I bought it.
Nice. Well, there you go.
That's my check-in. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I've got I think 3 or 4 check-ins that include one very shameless plug. But anyway, I'm going to do the 2 book-related ones. Well, there's 3 book-related ones. Anyway, who cares? So, my girlfriend Jess started working a part-time job at a bookstore, and she has kept her eyes out for a bunch of Stephen King stuff for me. And she surprised me with, did I tell you about this? Oh, I think I did tell you about this time.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah. She surprised me with this hardcover edition of it's Stephen King's Battleground, which is the subheading is a commemoration of the Emmy-winning. Oh my God, a commemoration of the Emmy-winning television adaptation, edited by Richard Christian Matheson. This is just an incredible book. It's kind of not necessarily a coffee table book, but it's like a big hardcover book with a dust jacket and everything. But what it is it has. So let me get some back. Let me share some background. Battleground is a very cool story. In Night Shift, it's a short story from Night Shift about a man, I think he's like a contract killer or hitman or whatever you want to call him, who is gifted a box of toy soldiers, and the toy soldiers are they come to life and try to kill him, basically. And so it was adapted into TNT's 2006 Nightmares and Dreamscapes from the Stories of Stephen King series. And I talked about it in a previous episode long ago that I watched that episode because I was reading Night Shift, and it blew my mind because Battleground is a story that is very much patterned after the episode of The Twilight Zone, The Invaders, which is about a woman who is under siege from these miniature aliens that have landed on her house. And what I was just floored by was the fact that the Battleground adaptation in Nightmares and Dreamscapes was patterned after the Invaders episode of The Twilight Zone, and The Invaders was written by Richard Matheson, and the script for the Battleground adaptation was written by Richard Christian Matheson, Richard Matheson's son, and just all of the layers to that just blew my mind. But this book is incredible. It's it has an introduction from Richard Christian Matheson, then it has the short story itself, and then it has a bunch of interviews and essays, and it has the script for the TV episode, and it just has a whole bunch of stuff. It has, it also has the storyboards, and it has an essay from William Hurt, who starred in the episode, who recently passed away, fairly recently. But it's really cool. What I think I'm going to do is, probably early next year, I'm going to, read through it and post something on Patreon about it. But yeah, I'm very pleased with it. It's really cool. I'm very, very, very happy with it. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you have not read Battleground or Night Shift, have you?
No, I haven't, but I did. I did see the episode of television with William Hurt.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's right. I think we
that.
talked about this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
There's no dialogue, right?
Yep, there's no dialogue, which is that, again, it's just so cool because in The Invaders in the Twilight Zone there was no dialogue either, and it's just it's so awesome. It's so cool. Yeah.
I need to get back to Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah, you do.
Is it still on Netflix?
No, it's on Paramount Plus, but I have a profile on there for you, so I can give you the password and everything. Okay. Yeah, Paramount Plus, formerly CBS All Access, the preferred streaming service of obsessiveviewer.com. I say with my tongue in my cheek because I know, Tiny, you are not a fan.
I had so many problems with it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's better now, but
it's fine. It still has that very annoying trait where I pay for the no ads thing, but weirdly enough, every single time, like, it doesn't have the ads in it like it did for you when you had CBS All Access with no ads. But every time, like, it just has like the ads at the beginning, like the ad for whatever Paramount Plus thing they're hawking. And I'm just like, I don't even want to see that. I just want to, I don't know. Anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a tangent, but shall I continue with the check-ins? And I'll try to be brief with some of these too, so we can kind of keep going. Okay. So the next thing is another thing that my girlfriend Jess had bought. She actually pre-ordered this a while ago, and it just came out, and it's available on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes and everything. It's Castle Rock. I'm going to take that again. Castle Rock Kitchen. Wicked Good Recipes from the World of Stephen King by Teresa Carly Sanders, with a foreword written by Stephen King. It is on my counter, so it's away from where I'm sitting, but this is a very cool, like, cookbook. I'm like, Jess and I, when she got it, she brought it over and we were like looking through it and everything.
That's awesome.
There's tons of like really cool recipes that I honestly can't wait to check out. But just for an example, like some of the recipes in it, this one I'm not too interested in because I don't like beans, but like some of the examples are Dick Halloran's baked beans, Dolores's oven risotto, life sentence oatmeal, and this doesn't really have a bearing on anything, but they have a recipe for homemade root beer, which speaks to me. I'm very curious about that.
Nice.
So it's very cool, very interesting. And each recipe has like an excerpt from the book that it's inspired by, or the story that it's inspired from. And there's some pretty nice, like, deep cuts in there too.
Nice.
Yeah. And then there's little like blurbs for each one and everything. And it's really cool. It's really cool. I love it. Yeah. So
nice. I will be disappointed if it does not contain a recipe for gunslinger burritos.
I hate to tell you this. There's no Dark Tower stuff in it. Yeah, I really want them to do like a follow-up with just Dark Tower world, like mid-world stuff, like gunslinger burritos and popkins and other Dark Tower foods, I guess.
Damn.
Yeah. But yeah. But there's tons of stuff on there, so.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of good stuff.
Oh yeah. So yeah, and then the last couple of check-ins I have is that I kind of mentioned before, I'm kind of slowly making my way through Fairy Tale, and I'm enjoying it. I'm going to get back at it very soon and have more stuff posted on Patreon. So if you want to follow along with me on Patreon, it's $2 per month. You get access to a bunch of stuff there, or $5 or $10 if you feel particularly generous. But I'm doing kind of a read-along review, really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. And Stephen King still has not skipped a beat. It's just very awesome. And then here comes the shameless plug as well, because one of the reasons why, maybe not the reason why we've been a little bit delayed with getting a new episode out, is that I've been really just plugging away at Patreon stuff. So I've been making my way through Dark, the German sci-fi series on Netflix. and I've been doing episode reviews of that on Patreon for the $2 and above patrons. First of all, I am I'm incredibly proud of myself for those reviews because I'm going very deep into it. And the show is it's tailor-made for me. It's incredible. And I released the first 2 Patreon reviews as a full Obsessive Viewer episode over on Obsessive Viewer. So check that out, OV383. But the reason I'm bringing up this in Stephen King check-ins is that in July of 2020, Stephen King tweeted his enjoyment of Dark. And I'm going to just read the tweets to entice people to watch the show and then maybe throw some money at Patreon to listen to my reviews. But anyway, King had written on Twitter on July 23rd, 2020, he said, Dark is dark and complex and, well, very German. Terrific show. If you get confused, go to Meta Witches and check out Metachrone's recaps, detailed and helpful. I think he meant if you get confused, go 2 years into the future and subscribe to the Obsessive Viewer Patreon feed.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. And then he said, you think the world is going to shit, then you find out other people are watching Dark and you say, thank you, God, there's hope. So yeah. But yeah, I just adore that show. I'm into the second season now, and it's something special.
That's great. Yeah,
So,
I watched
yeah.
the first season a little while ago, and I really liked it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as I was watching it, I was like, Matt's going to be all over this show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
you like it.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am too. And I've been taking rigorous notes every episode, and I've been just really for frame of reference, when I do TV reviews on Patreon and everything, it's usually 30-40 minutes of content that I'm just it's an immediate reaction to it. But with Dark, it's I'm pausing every few seconds, I'm taking notes and everything, I'm watching it, I'm absorbing it, and then I'm talking for an hour or hour and a half per episode. And it's just it's very fulfilling, and I'm very excited about it. So
Sweet.
yeah. Yep. So, all right. Those are my check-ins and everything, and shameless plugs and everything. Again, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. But, Tiny, do you want to get into our review for this evening?
Absolutely.
Nice. So, like I said before, we're going to be continuing our series on Carrie and its various adaptations. Tonight, we are discussing the 2002 TV movie that aired on November 4th, 2002 on NBC. And just for form's sake, the plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is Carrie White is a lonely and painfully shy teenage girl with telekinetic powers who is slowly pushed to the edge of insanity by frequent bullying from both her classmates and her domineering religious mother. This adaptation of Carrie starred Angela Bettis as Carrie White. As of right now, this is her only Stephen King related work in her filmography. Co-starring as Margaret White is Patricia Clarkson, who would go on to appear in she previously appeared in The Green Mile, in Frank Darabont's The Green Mile. And then the rest of the cast includes Rena Sofer as Miss Desjardins, her only Stephen King work, Candace McClure as Sue Snell, who she would go on to play a role in the 2009 TV movie edition of Children of the Corn, I think. And she also appeared in one episode of Haven. And then rounding out the cast is Emily DeRaven as Chris Hargensen. This is her only Stephen King work, and of course she is very much famous for her role in Lost, which is kind of a kindred spirit to Stephen King, I think. Yeah. Writer for this movie is Brian Fuller, and as far as other Stephen King properties that he's taken the helm on, he was announced a while ago to be adapting Christine. I'm not sure what the status of that project is, but after hearing him on Kingcast, and I'm dying to see what he does with that particular story. So yeah,
for sure.
Yep. And then rounding out the talent is director David Carson. This is his only Stephen King work. So Tiny, let's get into it. Of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review of Carrie 2002 to bring us into the non-spoiler section and to the review proper. I'm actually going to go ahead and play a clip from the trailer, if you don't mind. Is that cool?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. Clip from the trailer for Carrie 2002.
Something has happened at you in high school. Something horrible. Something evil. And one man must find out what it was.
So the going theory is that the three of you conspired to get Carrie White to the prom so you could humiliate her. And then something went wrong and a lot of people were killed.
Was it the outsider who kept to herself?
Up until half an hour ago, Carrie White thought her first period was homeroom.
When she was mistreated?
You should have told me, Mama. The girls all made fun of me.
Did she just fade away?
Shouldn't people like that be homeschooled? You know, creepy religious people.
We're very sorry about all this, Cassie.
It's Carrie.
So, Tiny, had you seen this version of Carrie before, and what did you think about it this time around, or the first viewing, whenever? How'd you feel about Carrie 2002?
I didn't even really know it existed until
Nice.
you mentioned us reviewing it for the podcast. Was this on Sci-Fi? Is that where this aired?
No, it was on not Netflix, but NBC. Yep.
NBC, really?
Yeah.
Huh,
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it was when I saw the date of release compared to the quality of the show, I was like, this came out in 2002 because it kind of feels like 1992.
Yeah.
Just because it was totally a like 90s camp show.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it felt like. And I'm not averse to that. Like,
Sure.
I like in our top 19 adaptations, I talked about how despite the campiness of the It series, I really like that adaptation. You know, it's if you can get past that aesthetic nature of the show, it's a really good adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would think that I would be more prone to kind of like this adaptation. I just thought it was fine. I think my biggest qualm with it is it doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
You know, the Sissy Spacek movie from the 70s is a fantastic adaptation, and it's great, and it does not need to be remade.
Yeah.
And I don't know, especially doesn't need to be on TV.
Yeah.
Network TV in early 2000s to boot. It's just weird. I don't know why someone thought this would be a good idea. You know, TV is different now. You know, you can put something on Netflix or whatever, and you can have a nice big budget, and it'll be good, and you can have your rated R, rated TV MA, and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
But a network adaptation of Carrie in 2002, I just don't understand why someone thought it was a good idea. I just thought it was fine. I'm probably not really going to remember it. There's not really a ton there to say about it, I guess. Just because the movie already exists, and like, you know, I think maybe when we talked about the movie, it has a certain level of icon status. I think. I mean, it's to the extent where you know, maybe it's maybe not like The Shining, but you can mention the movie, and you know, everyone knows what you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
they've probably seen it, and maybe they don't hold it in as high of a regard as they hold something like The Shining, but it's there, and people know about it, and there's a lot of people who love it, and it's one of their favorite horror movies. So,
absolutely,
I just don't know why this needed to be made.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree with you. I will say that I was surprised because I had watched this in 2013 in preparation for the Chloe Grace Moretz movie. And I didn't really remember much of anything about it. And watching it today, I I had some conflicting thoughts. First of all, the locker room scene or the shower scene, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, the famous period scene is like really weird in that it is seemingly trying to emulate De Palma's style with the opening of his Carrie movie. And it just seems like completely unnecessary to do that. And it kind of, even though it comes a few scenes later in the movie, and it doesn't open the movie with it, it still kind of just signals to the audience that, you know, we like it's the only thing it's doing is reminding us that there is a more, maybe not more prestigious, but a more well done, like iconic movie that's made from this property. So the fact that they just kind of tried to emulate it for that just kind of set a tone or set the pace to it to make us think like, okay, well, they're not going to do anything unique with it. And that's a half like truth, because they do unique things with this that we will talk about in spoilers, but it made me scratch my head, and it reminded me that, like, I know some of the stuff about the production and everything that I'll talk about in spoilers, but the things that they do that differentiates it from the De Palma film and from the source text and everything makes it make sense that it would be on like a TV movie of the week kind of thing, given everything surrounding it. But I was kind of overall a little bit, I feel like I was prepared to kind of dog this movie and just have no redeeming thoughts about it or anything. But I felt like it was actually a little bit better than I expected and better than I remembered. In particular, even though it is like an early 2000s made for TV movie, it's still, I feel like the visual effects of the destruction and everything were a little bit more well done than I expected for a TV movie of that era. Like I think back to like the Langoliers, which came out like probably maybe a full decade before this. But if you compare like the Langoliers was in 95. The visual effects of that is just atrocious. Like it's so just bad. But in just a span of 7 years, they actually got really decent or passable visual effects. So I think that the timing of making it is okay, but there's a lot about it that I just didn't really kind of like all that much, and it kind of drug the experience down. Most of all, I don't know why it exists. It doesn't really make a case for it to have a purpose behind existing. Like, I believe that the 2013 movie was made because they felt like this and De Palma's film didn't necessarily have much of anything to say about bullying and everything. And in the era that we're in now, like, that is this story is kind of tailored to that sort of storytelling and everything. But even on that front, like, this doesn't really work all that well for that, because it feels like it's just not that good.
One of the things that they tried to do different from the De Palma's movie, they had the kind of investigation featured with the cop and interviewing all the people and everything. So that's something they tried to do differently, and I mean they did it. But it's it didn't really. I don't feel like it really added anything.
It really didn't.
I think maybe they thought it was going to be something that tied everything together or something. And it kind of does that in the book. I think in the book I enjoy that part of it. It has like kind of this classic mystery feel to it. And I like that in the book, but in this it was just exposition dumps and really really low budget shit. Like I was like blown away by the filming of those scenes because it's like extreme close up. Like it's just like it's faces. It's just faces. The cop and then the other random cop who doesn't say anything the whole time, and she's just standing behind the camera, running the camera for some fucking reason. Like he can't press a goddamn button. And then the person being interviewed. It's just like I could not tell you what color the fucking walls were because the close-ups were so tight, and it's just like I don't know. It's like that to me that just screams extremely low budget, and like maybe I'm wrong, but
and it tries to kind of like what you were saying. It tries to manufacture some of that suspense and the mystery surrounding what happens at prom and everything, which is something I can definitely appreciate about it because it is an attempt to honor the book structure, because the book has that epistolary format with the interrogation and like with testimonies during the investigation and with like depositions and stuff, transcripts from the White Commission, which is a government commission to look into what happened. And then even excerpts from Sue Snell's book about telekinetic energy and telekinetic powers and everything, and about what happened. So the book, by doing that, creates this incredibly, like, this widespread global phenomenon out of what happens, which gives us the suspense and the build up toward the finale that the story needs, because we know that, yes, it is going to get bonkers, insane. There's going to be death, destruction, horror, everything. But so that leads us to that. But here in the show, here in the movie, we just have this very like disconnected like police investigation that like also I like there was a piece of trivia on IMDb that I can't remember exactly what it said, but I think it was on IMDb, but it was something like how would they even prosecute that? Like I mean, I get the conspiracy aspect of it and everything, but like murders through telekinesis, like I don't know how that's prosecuted or anything.
Right.
Yeah, and it felt like just kind of felt like a weird kind of heel turn from the book. And by that I mean that this story is inherently this fantasy world about telekinetic powers and how like it led to the deaths of tons of people and all of this like this mayhem and everything. But the movie like recognizes that, but then kind of pointedly makes it grounded with this police investigation of just this community, investigating just this incident and just these like 3 or 4 people that were involved in some way. And that is just counter to what the book does, because the book is expansive. In this, I don't know, I don't like how high pitched my voice got there. The book is expansive, but the movie is just grounding it to make it a police procedural, and then that just kind of takes some of the mystique and energy away from it. And I don't know, it just doesn't really connect with me.
Yeah, totally. And I hadn't even thought of that. That's such a good. You're totally right. Because yeah, like, what's the point? Like, this guy is a small town cop.
Yeah,
and it's like what? And it's funny because he's kind of the stereotypical like oh, I'm this like skilled sleuth who's gonna find this shit out and get to the bottom of this and get to find the truth. And it's like, for what?
For what reason? For like, and it's just it's so cliched, and it's so just it doesn't work.
Yeah, you're gonna send these girls to jail for killing a pig, like,
right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it didn't work in my eyes. That cop character was so forgettable.
Yeah. And what's funny is that the marketing, the trailer, like puts him front and center. Like this man is trying to get to the bottom of it and everything. It's like, okay, fine, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as the casting goes, I thought, I think they did a pretty good job casting it. Angela Bettis she did a good job.
She did.
She was maybe a bit much in some of the scenes, maybe, but I don't know. I guess Carrie White is a pretty hysterical kind of person anyway, so maybe that's in keeping with the character, you know.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like she was maybe a little bit beholden to Sissy Spacek's performance in the first one.
Right.
Like it just seemed like part of it was just kind of maybe not fully emulating it, but just kind of using that as a jumping off point for her performance.
Right. Yeah. So she did a good job. I've seen her in other stuff, but I don't really remember her from other stuff. She's not. Yeah. I guess she's not sticking in my memory, but I know I've seen her in other things. But yeah, she did a really good job. I feel like Patricia Clarkson, though, as Margaret White was, again, just kind of forgettable. Like she did not have the intensity, of the character in the movie, Brian De Palma's movie, and seemed just a little too subdued, which is weird because Patricia Clarkson's a great actor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She has plenty of great roles out there, but for whatever reason in this, I like she was just going for a paycheck or something. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, it felt very, and Margaret White is a character who needs to be as larger than life as can be, because the whole point of the movie is this dark religion and this religious zealotry that breeds this abusive relationship, and that's the horror of it. Is like the horror of the story is that this woman has just horrifically abused her daughter and is this incredibly just insane person. And I would argue that the telekinesis and the bullying and everything and the pig blood and everything is kind of secondary to that. And this movie kind of squanders it because it just has, like you said, she's kind of subdued, even when she has the outbursts of like saying like go to your closet and pray and everything. It seems like she's not fully committing to the insanity of the character, and that's a little bit frustrating and doesn't really help with the already kind of issue laden pacing, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But I feel like the rest of the cast is just pretty standard in their performances. Candace McClure is just, I don't think she's really that great of an actor. I mean, I remember her from I know her from Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching her on that and thinking, she's not that great. So
wow.
Which I mean, she's not terrible. It's just I had kind of forgotten about her until I saw this, and I was like, oh, that's right. She was in, I don't know. She's, again, just forgettable is the word I kind of keep coming back to. Unfortunately, but I don't know.
Well, on the line now we have our special guest. I'm kidding. No, I was gonna say, I know Candace McClure from Battlestar Galactica as well, because I watched like the first two seasons and some of the third season. I need to actually like go back and watch it proper. But an anecdote about Candace McClure is, do you remember the first year that PopCon was in Indianapolis and she was there and we were at our booth recording and she smiled and waved at us, and then my dumbass did not think to wave her over to get an interview with her as we were recording a podcast.
Oh yeah, that was her.
Yeah, that was her.
Dang, I forgot about that completely.
Yep. So friend of the show, Candace McClure.
Well, now I feel like a dick for saying.
Oh no, it's fine.
All that shit. Yeah. She's really pretty. I'll say that. She's
sure. Yeah.
Gorgeous woman.
Mm-hmm. But I think she did a fine enough job as Sue Snell. I do kind of appreciate the way that this iteration of Carrie gives her a little bit more to do. It seems a little bit. It seems a little bit more focused on her, which I think is the proper way to tell this story in this medium, because she's an observer of Carrie's downfall and of Carrie's ridicule and everything, and having it from her point of view is a little bit it creates a sharper vision of the tragedy of Carrie, the tragedy of Carrie White, which we'll talk about this in spoilers, but which this movie completely squanders and gets completely wrong, and the ending is just absolutely dumb. But we'll talk about that. But for the most part, I think that the focal point being mostly on Sue Snell is the right way to handle this story.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. The structure was a decent choice.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think of Emily DeRaven as Chris Hargensen?
She was fine. I feel like the character of Chris Hargensen is just like so harsh, so Chris Harshenson.
Nice.
It's almost like she's a little over the top just because like she's such a ridiculous bully.
Yeah.
Just so angry for no reason, you know. But she did fine. I mean, it's interesting to picture her in that role because I just see Claire from Lost. You know, it's hard for me to picture her as anything else. Helpless little Claire. But yeah, she did a pretty good job. It was interesting to see her like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think she did a fine enough job. If I'm not mistaken, I think that this was her first role, actually. Maybe.
I was looking through that, and it's one of her, like, I think maybe she did some television stuff here and there, but it was like small stuff.
Okay. And of course she is, she's an Aussie. So,
right.
I think she did a fine enough job with the, accent.
My baby.
My baby. Charlie. It's the
Charlie.
baby. But this, oh yeah. Oh wow. She was in, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. She was in Roswell apparently.
That's right.
Yeah. But, one of the faults that I feel is at fault for this movie, one of the ways that the movie is at fault, I think, is that I don't like her motivation in the story is kind of this weird misguided or narcissistic and bullying payback on Carrie because she is not allowed to go to prom because she faced consequences for her actions. And in this movie, I feel like there was like a scene, unless I imagined this, I feel like there was a scene where she's like, yeah, I don't even really care about prom. Like, okay, that it just seems like that's kind of a big part of the character. Like, why excise that from the character in this movie and give her really nothing as far as motivation to do a despicable and horrible thing that indirectly leads to mass death. It's just it's a weird choice on in the script, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I picked up on that line of her saying that.
It's possible that I misheard something, but I feel like there was a part where she said, like, honestly, I don't even really care about prom. It's just I think it was like supposed to be kind of implying that it's the principle of the thing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I missed that part.
Okay.
Yeah. I also, to kind of wrap up the performances, I was pleasantly surprised. Well, not about surprised, but I enjoyed Rena Sofer's performance.
Me too.
I haven't seen her in a lot, especially haven't seen her in anything in quite a while.
Yeah.
I liked her performance, but I also just liked the characterization of Miss Desjardins better in this movie. She has more to do, and you know she has some moments where she connects with Carrie on a human level. And I kind of appreciated that. I thought it was nice. I think it's even a little more fleshed out in this than it is in the book even.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Really, the character, just on like blanket statement, the character of Miss Desjardins is a really good character. Like, and I appreciate that. I feel like the character, she wasn't named Miss Desjardins in De Palma's movie, but I feel like that character is kind of not to her full potential in that movie, I think, if I remember correctly. But
I agree.
Yeah, but here it's like you really get a lot more of her motivation and her kind of perspective on things, and I really like that as kind of a counterbalance to the perspective that Sue Snell provides with these two people that are in different ways and in similar ways also simultaneously kind of having this growing compassion toward Carrie and being these observers of what's going on and realizing like how terrible it is for her and everything.
Yeah.
So I like it. Yeah.
How did you feel about the, I'll call it primitive use of the internet in this show?
I was gonna mention that. It was.
I swear to God, I swear to God, she was about to pop an AOL online CD into a disk drive. Yeah,
like
Man.
that, and then just like Google it or like search like net searching or what, like ask Jeevesing or whatever. Like miracles,
right?
That, and then when that scene comes up where she's yelling at Margaret and saying that there are other people like me that have these same experiences. I read about it on the internet, and then Margaret White just says like the internet. It's like, okay.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's they didn't it was a different time. Just a different time.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, this whole internet fad thing is gonna go away any day now.
Right.
But no, that's an interesting kind of timestamp for this adaptation.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of feel like the story of Carrie, like this property is so it feels like there's a universality to it in that like it makes me excited to see how they handled it in 2013 because I don't really remember that movie all that well, but I'm curious to see how they handled it. And I would say, enough time has passed that I think that this could be a story that can be readapted on like a decade by decade basis, as the culture changes, as the kind of world of teen drama evolves and changes with like the world and everything. Not to say that this has anything really of importance or of like a profound nature to say about it or anything, because this movie has such an abundance of like, it's kind of to that that goofiness that you described, or that kind of camp factor, where like the scenes with the teenagers just have this kind of very goofy, like early 2000s cliched hipness in it.
Right.
Like everything from the soundtrack to the way that they're kind of like, moving around. It just seems like, I don't know, it just seems very, very goofy and a little bit out of touch, but
for sure.
Yeah.
Chris Hargenson's boyfriend was just unwatchable.
Oh my God. Yes. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. He was just awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but part of it was the writing. The writing was just so bad. Cause I appreciate Brian Fuller as a writer, but it was just bad.
Yeah.
Most of it was the actor. The actor was just terrible and over the top. But yeah, that was a little treat in the show.
Yeah, there's a moment where they hear about what is going on, and then Chris is like, "Hey, like, did you hear what he said? What are we doing?" Because he gets up. He gets up and he's like, we're going. And then she's like, what are we doing? And then there's like a solid, like 3 to 4 second, like like moment where he's just standing there staring at nothing, and then he says, "We're gonna go watch the fire," and it's just the flattest read. The like, it is the most like if you take that moment and make it into a GIF, that is like. Or you can memeify it and make it like a no thoughts, head empty, like meme, because there's nothing to that guy's performance.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Do you want to get into spoilers, what we can of this now, or any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay, awesome. Well, actually, right before spoilers, I do want to mention that I did sort of appreciate the "She's All That" reference.
Yeah.
As prolonged as it was, but like I just like when they kind of play with pop culture there. And then later in the movie, when they're going to prom, Carrie references Pygmalion and then references My Fair Lady, which is, you know, what She's All That is like based on and everything.
Okay.
So yeah, but anyway, we're going to go into spoilers for the 2002 TV movie version of Carrie. So stay tuned. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. We watched it on Vudu, so you can rent or buy it there. And who knows, it might actually in its entirety be available on YouTube for all I know. But to separate the so to separate the non-spoiler to spoiler, okay, I'm not finding it on YouTube, so that's fine. But anyway, I'm going to play some music, and then when we come back, we're going to spoil Carrie 2002. All right, so spoilers on for Carrie 2002, the TV movie from Brian Fuller and David Carson. Tiny, what did you think in spoilers about this iteration of Carrie?
Well, the kind of big meaty part is the the ending, which we can talk about. But I think one thing I've mostly kind of shit on this this adaptation, but genuinely I think one thing that they did really well with, despite the poor quality, is they showcased the destruction of the town really well. Yeah, I think that's something that the original one was lacking. In the books, in the book, it's being described as, all the fire hydrants are exploding and shooting water into the air, and there's all kinds of destruction going on. And in the movie, the Sissy Spacek, Brian De Palma movie from the 70s didn't really capture that too much. There was a couple shots, couple scenes, and that was about it. But there was a cool part where they had like we would call it like a drone shot nowadays, like a bird's eye thing, where they're kind of going around town and you can see all these fires starting and things blowing up. And there's a part where you see her walking down the street and she's the fences are collapsing and the light posts are coming down, cars are flipping over, and it kind of looked, I don't want to say it looked like shit. It did not look good. It didn't look good. But I liked the idea of it. The concept of it was really cool, and that's what I wanted to see in the movie, and they pulled it off here. It's a little, it's fairly campy, but they pulled it off here, and I'm glad that they actually went for it.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny, you said earlier in the episode, you mentioned, you asked if this was on Sci-Fi, and the visual effects of it does look like a sci-fi presentation. And I mean that as both good and bad. I do think that it looks fairly decent for the time it was in, and it being a TV movie, it's like the visual effects look pretty solid, especially like when Chris and Billy Nolan, is that him? Is that his name?
I think so.
Yeah, when their death scene. I mean, that's a big set piece, and it's fine, but I think that if this was made like 2 or 3 years earlier, it would have not been able to be done in such a way. It would have looked even like absolutely worse. So I think knowing the time frame that this was made in, like it's pretty acceptable in my eyes. But
Okay.
and I do appreciate that they went for, like, they actually went for it with the destruction of the town and everything, because that's something that it's such a pivotal part of the story. And I wish that they would have, again, I just wish that they would have, maybe even just absolutely, instead of doing the investigation thing, have the White Commission be a part of it. Have that be the frame story. Have that be what they keep going back to and everything. So it establishes that it's a big event that is much bigger than just, a girl killing a bunch of kids at prom. I don't know. It's a frustrating adaptation for me.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little harsh on it visually, but it certainly didn't look great.
Yeah.
at the very least.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying it should go up for any awards or anything like that by any stretch at all. I think mostly I'm just appreciative that they went for it, when just the fact that it's a network TV, like, movie of the week movie with, I would assume a very low budget. Like, they could have easily went a more streamlined route without kind of making that giving that burden to themselves.
Yeah, totally agree, for sure.
Yeah.
But then I think the big part in spoilers is the ending, different ending. I don't know if you want to jump to that yet or not.
We can't. Let's talk a little bit about Margaret White first.
Okay.
Because I don't remember how they do Margaret White's death in the 2013 movie. But I remember liking how they did it in De Palma's movie, but here they actually do the heart attack kind of crushing heart with telekinetic powers thing, which it looks hokey, it looks weird, it looks goofy, it's very disconnected, I guess. But I appreciate that they did that, because that is such a big part of the book, that, and it has that tragedy baked into it. And I think that is the tragedy of those characters and everything, and it just feels so tragic. So I'm glad that they did that. Of course, like I said, the tragedy of Carrie White is completely extinguished and gone to shit because of the ending of this movie, but there in that moment I liked it. How did you feel about Margaret and Carrie's big family meeting?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it too, just because it was true to the book, a true adaptation. So I appreciated they went for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of liked the sort of added bonus that she was trying to drown Carrie when she did it.
Yeah,
because that's not in the book, is it?
No, I think no, because in the book she stabs her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I thought that was kind of a disturbing direction to take it.
Yeah.
I appreciate, because she was, again, we mentioned it, kind of subdued in this movie compared to the De Palma movie.
Yeah.
So to see her go to that extreme was pretty shocking, and I appreciated that part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So the ending. Tiny, did you know anything about the production of this movie, or about why they went with this ending? And do you know that yet?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. I'll disclose it to you. I'll tell you about it after I get your read on the ending. So what did you think about the ending of the movie, in which Carrie White basically fakes her death and Sue Snell drives her to Florida And that's it, basically. What did you think of this ending?
I wish I could say I respect it as a creative choice, but I really don't. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you're going to say, because I don't understand that creative choice. I think it was weird, and it again, to your point, it just completely betrays the character and her suffering. It weakens the ending so much. And they even did like the double dream thing where she wakes up twice. Like she wakes up within the dream and then she wakes up for real. I was like, God damn, how tired is that? Even in 2002, you know? That was just bad. It was just bad all around. And just creatively not a good choice. I didn't care for it either.
Yeah.
I was fine with them trying to do something different, you know, if they wanted to do something different, but that was just not the right kind of different, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And they kind of try to have their cake and eat it too, with having them in the car and then her having that vision of her mother, and just having like it hinting at like she'll always be haunted by her and everything. And like, fine, but also it's just it doesn't work. It just doesn't work for me at all. But the reason that they did this is that this movie was initially, I don't know at what point in production that this was decided, but this movie was intended to be a backdoor pilot for a sequel series that would have followed Carrie White and Sue Snell going on like adventures, or I don't know if they were necessarily going to be on the run from the law with Carrie, or if it was going to be that Carrie was going to be finding other kids that have telekinetic powers and rescuing them and guiding them and everything like that. So the intention was to have this spring forward into a full-fledged TV series where they would have that. And the ratings and the reviews and everything of this movie were abysmal, so they scrapped that whole idea. And in trivia, it says the drastic ending change was designed to allow a Carrie television series sequel in which she would help other people with telekinesis control their powers. So yeah. How do you feel about that, Tiny?
Good God. Thank Christ that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because talk about ruining the character. Holy shit. That's even worse than the ending they cooked up here. That's such a horrible idea.
Yep.
Wow.
Like the whole and oh my God. Like now that I'm talking it out, everything is even more frustrating, because the fact that like this, like the character of Carrie White is a tragic character. That is the entire point of the character, is that she is a tragic character who just never had, like, the one time that she had like any semblance of normalcy in her life, or any sense of not being who she is, or who she's perceived to be, is the prom date with Tommy Ross. And that's the sole point of it, which also, we didn't really talk about this. This movie does not give that whole, does not do the whole like, oh, you liked my story, so like that, like it doesn't do that whole thing where they have like this friendly connection and everything. They even kiss when they're dancing, which I thought was kind of weird and out of place. But there's no real connection there with them. But the whole point of Carrie White is that she is this tragic figure who is abused by her mother and berated by her mother, and who is in turn, like, she is her mother is a religious zealot who was also, you know, a victim of abuse from her husband, I think, if I remember correctly. And so it's just basically the cards are so stacked against her, and then she has this one moment of like calm and niceness and goodness in her life for this one night, and then it goes to shit. Everyone dies, and she goes absolutely insane, and she dies as a result of it. She is a tragic character. This movie positions her to be the star and hero of a TV series that never happens, and it just feels just so tone deaf and weird and not good. It's really, really frustrating.
It was a horrible choice.
Yeah, and I feel like it's even seated in a way, like the tragedy of her is seated in the scene where Miss Desjardins is talking to her at prom, saying like, "Hey, just so you know, everything that's happened up to this point is not going to matter after high school. Like, you are going to, like, you don't ever need to see or talk to any of these people again after you graduate. You're going to have an entirely different life." And like, I feel like that scene is pretty well done if it led to Carrie dying and being like a tragic figure as she should be from the story and everything. Mm-hmm. But here it's like, okay, fine. It's just that's just a disconnected scene, I think. Yeah.
I loved that scene. I thought it was so good, and I appreciated both actors a lot in that scene.
Yes.
And good writing too.
Yeah.
It was great. I agree with you. I totally liked it. But yeah, it would have been made so much more significant if they had gone with the original ending.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah.
And how often does that actually work? I'd love to find someone who did the research where a show took a turn to create a spinoff and it actually worked, and that spinoff not only got made but was successful. I mean, and I don't mean like, you know, Mork from Ork getting his own show. Like, he was part of that. What was the original? I don't even. It doesn't matter. But like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like when they actually like made a change to a show, like with The Office when they tried to do that whole thing. With,
a backdoor pilot
thing. Yeah, a backdoor. There you go. I didn't realize. I had never heard that term before, but that's perfect. Yeah, like that. How often has that worked? I'm really curious. You know.
No, I don't know. I don't even know. I would say the like one successful spinoff or what have you. Well, not one successful spinoff, because there's been tons of spinoffs. Like, I mean, when you have like franchise shows like CSI or like those procedurals, those work. But like something like this, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be curious to look it up and see how many times that's actually worked, because I bet it's not very many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Oh, Maude from All in the Family. Yeah. Yeah. Mork and Mindy was from Happy Days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's always something that kind of bothers me. But like in this case, it's different because it's like an actual made-for-TV movie that is intended to be the pilot episode, I guess. I don't even know if it was intended to be the pilot episode. I think it was just intended to lead to a spinoff or lead to a sequel. So I don't know. Right. It just kind of crapped the bed for me. Yeah. Should we wind down? Is there anything else we want to talk about in spoilers?
No, nothing jumps out to me really.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, again, I wish that this was better. I respect Brian Fuller. I like the stuff that he's done, but this is kind of a not really that great.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now, have you seen the 2013 movie?
I have, yeah, but I haven't seen it since it came out almost 10 years ago.
Same here.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how that's gonna play, really. But yeah, this one was definitely a misstep, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, or should we wrap it up?
I'd say wrap her up.
Alrighty. Well, that was the episode of Tower Junkies, guys. Tiny, I'm glad we're back on Tower Junkies. It's been a while, and I'm always enjoy talking King with you.
Amen to that.
Yes. So next time on the podcast, which it should hopefully be sooner rather than later, we are going to be discussing the 2013 Carrie adaptation starring Chloe Grace Moretz and Julianne Moore and oh god, I can't remember her name. Miss Desjardins in the movie. Judy Greer. She's in it also. So excited for that. Before we go, just once again, check out our other shows. Check out Obsessive Viewer and my solo podcast Anthology, where I talk about the Twilight Zone. I've been really hitting the pavement with that. Also check out Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for tons and tons and tons of exclusive bonus content. Yeah, so without further ado, that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
We timed that pretty much perfectly. That was awesome.
Sweet.
And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. But that's neither here nor there, because in these first 6 chapters, in the first 108 pages, so we're like a sixth of the way through the novel, we don't have anything in terms of like what the fairy tale is. We don't know anything about what's in the shed. We have little bits and pieces and hints there, but all of this has been built up. All of this has been character development, situational development, and everything. And I kind of really, really love it. It is, again, it's King exercising his strength as a storyteller, because it is him setting us up for the story as a whole. And what I find really interesting about this in terms of these first 108 chapters, or 108 pages, is that it kind of seems like he's curtailed himself, or he's kind of brought himself back a little bit when it comes to, he's held himself back a little bit when it comes to foreshadowing, because and this isn't necessarily a criticism of him, because I think it works more often than it doesn't work, but oftentimes he will do a very, very direct and overt foreshadowing of things. Like he does like his signature, like, oh, this was the last time he ever saw him or anything kind of thing. And that kind of, sometimes that can lessen the suspense a little bit for me. Case in point, interesting enough, because The Eyes of the Dragon.
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.